Hey, this is a podcast. No, wait, it's a comedy podcast. Well, we tried to make it a comedy podcast, and it's not meant to offend anyone. So don't get offended, okay? And wait, there's something else. Oh, yeah, yeah. Listener discretion is advised.
Audiomatic presents Our Last Week.
I'll just clap.
Yeah.
Okay. My dog got scared.
Your dog, I don't think the dog got scared because of the clapping, Kunal. I think the dog got scared because it's you.
Yeah, no, I am quite scary.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you clap like that near me, I would get scared also.
Yeah, no, that's true. My dog is just wondering. I just clapped so loudly. She's just sleeping over here quietly, and then I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
anyone would just get she just
yeah,
got up with a start. Poor thing. I
yeah.
mean, if you go to any sleeping person or being and you just clap like that in their face almost, it would be quite disturbing.
I mean, you have done that around me. I can't remember for what reason. And very much like your dog, I woke up and left the room, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And we haven't seen each other since. That's why we do this podcast remotely.
yeah. No, it
Yeah,
was very rude.
that was not nice. Yeah. Kunal,
How's it going, pal?
yeah, things are fine. I am in my last week in the UK and I'm
Mm-hmm.
at an Airbnb,
Hmm.
and the walls are very thin. And for some
Hmm. Hmm.
reason, I can hear all the conversations of the gentleman that lives above me.
Hmm. Hmm.
I know that he's fighting with his ex wife. I know he's not a very good parent. I know he's late on his mortgage payments. I know that he does not have enough money to go on his fishing holiday, but he's been lying to his friends, saying he's physically unwell.
Hmm.
Now, my conundrum is, Kunal, if I see this man,
Hmm.
there's really nothing left for me to say to him. Like
Hmm.
I know more about this man than I know about my own family.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my conundrum is it morally right to have this much information about a stranger just because the walls of my Airbnb are so thin?
Hmm.
Or should I go and tell him the walls are very thin? I have all this information about you. I know that your
Hmm.
ex-wife doesn't talk to you. I know you can't meet your alimony payments. I know that your children hate you. And maybe
Hmm.
he'll hug me and we'll be friends because technically I'm his therapist just by
Hmm.
the thin walls between us. It's an old house outside London and the walls are quite thin.
My only thing is that yeah, you would be his therapist if he knew that he was being heard.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's how therapy works generally. Is that it's like most voyeurs are not your therapists. They're just people who are spying on you. That they know you intimately
Yeah.
doesn't help you any because they're not even a shoulder to cry on, they're not a ear to speak into, they're just observing you without your information of being observed.
Yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah.
doesn't work as therapy, then it just works as just a little creepy. But it can't be helped. What can you do? You didn't ask for this. You're being subjected to this information. So I would think that, the two ways is, one is, of course, that you avoid all conversation or eye contact with this person.
Mm.
And the second is that you just pick up the conversation like you've known him really well,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So when I'm walking by, I can say, "How's Sarah?" And he's like, "She's
Yeah.
fine." And then later he's like, "How the fuck does he know I was married to
It
Sarah?"
was Sarah, yeah, yeah. Or you say, I know a great store for fishing reels if you want a cheap deal. So he's like, yeah, I do need a cheap one, but so you will just be like, so then you're of help. then you're
Yeah.
being helpful, and you're being of assistance and friendly. Otherwise, if you're otherwise, I would say then just avoid everything and give him dirty looks, and just judge him, and make him feel weird, which also helps sometimes, because
and
that also
and
keeps people in check.
and also, like, if he doesn't question how I know, and he just
Hmm.
lets me slide into his life,
Hmm. Hmm.
like I meet him just outside the house in the garden, and I'm like, I know you're worried about your mortgage rates. These are some companies offering better mortgage rates.
Hmm. Hmm.
I just jack him like that. And he's like, what are the companies? Tell me, without ever asking, how the fuck do you have this information?
Yeah. And what's strange about this is that if you replace yourself
Hmm.
with a device or a phone, he wouldn't find it as creepy. But that is what's happening to all of us, right? I mean, like, all our information, all our conversations, all our emails, everything is being spied on by this neighbor behind a very thin wall. But
Yeah, yeah,
but we don't find it creepy. So when we get the odd phone call saying, "Arey sir, your car, you're looking to sell it, or you're looking to go for a holiday to Goa. How did you know this? How dare you call me?" I mean, we've gone beyond that now. But if that person was a person, if that
yeah,
information came to us as a human,
yeah.
then we'd really be offended. How dare you, over, like, how can you be so, what I'm saying? Then we'd get really quite riled up, because, but somehow, if it's just a, like, if it's if it's just out there and we're always being spied on, somehow it just doesn't bother us any.
Yeah, so at the back of WhatsApp, there must be a person who knows
Yeah.
all the stuff, your private negotiations, this, that. But you're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
bothered because it's an algorithm that knows it, right? Like,
Algorithm. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
what you're saying is I am like Facebook Meta. I am
Yeah.
that
You're like Instagram,
absorber. I'm Instagram.
like Google search.
I'm
Yeah.
Google search. I'm an absorber of all his private information when I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which brings me to my next conundrum, Kunal. I haven't mentioned this to you.
Hmm.
I've never had an Amazon Alexa,
Hmm.
and I'm staying here alone to do my work
Hmm.
here in the UK for a bit. And this apartment I'm staying at has an Alexa. And there's
Hmm.
something very weird about waking up in the morning, weird and brilliant. Uh, you say, Alexa, play the news or something.
Hmm.
And even now, as I'm saying it, I have to whisper it and say it to you because if I say it a little louder, Alexa will start playing the news.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm saying that it feels like I'm in the presence of another presence, even though I'm
Hmm.
alone.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think if I'm not careful about using the word Alexa, random shit might happen in the house.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know if you've installed one of these in your residence, but I know many people have.
I think Alexa and all these other devices, or many companies have them. They are just, uh, they're the final acceptance of being spied on. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so they are like, oh, but I wanted to be spied on. But whereas the phones and our digital devices, our laptops, our iPads, everything else, we haven't given in as it. I mean, we are being spied on as much through our email and through everything. It's just that we haven't formalized it. I think Alexa is just the formalized, physicalized version of that spying.
yeah. And also, it's like you're living with another very sophisticated woman of an uncertain age. It feels a little
Hmm. Hmm.
dirty. Because
Yeah.
the other day I said, Alexa, tell me what the latest films are, and then suddenly I said, Alexa, louder, Alexa, softer,
Hmm.
because I'm cooking.
Hmm.
So it's sort of like I have like some unexpected,
Yeah.
I don't know, medieval dwarf running around the house doing stuff for
Yeah.
me. Uh,
But it feels wrong. I mean, if the, like, like sometimes, like after a certain age, you say, Alexa, please be an older woman. I can't hear such a young person's voice anymore, like. So then can can Alexa's voice get older, not
Yeah.
just change, like I'm saying, be an aged person. Like I want an old person to give me advice, like I don't want it coming from a young person, like, or maybe it'll feel better coming from an older voice, like an old man talking to you,
But do you think Alexa will age? And see, again, I'm whispering because if I say it too loudly, it'll come on. Um,
yeah.
do you think Alexa ages as you age? So it's sort of like how two pensioners get old. Alexa just gets old
Yeah.
with you.
I mean, I'm hoping that they think of that, because otherwise, like, it's just like then you're just constantly talking to this young girl, and like, you don't feel like you've moved at all in life. You feel like, Arey, what happened to us? We used to be the same age. I got old. You're still. So if they want to keep that thing going, they're going to have to age the person a little bit, whether it's a male or a female voice. It's
Yeah.
going to be an old person telling the news. In the
But
news today.
yeah. And then you should be able to have conversations with Alexa like how two old people talk. What? What?
Yeah.
Say it
What?
again.
What,
What?
Alexa? What did you say, Alexa? It's like, you old fart. It should be that, Then that's real companionship.
That's proper artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kunal, the other day a friend of mine wanted to meet me and I didn't really
Hmm.
have much to say to him. And
Hmm.
so I said to him, why don't you come see me in this stand up show?
Hmm.
And it's a stand up show where I would be repeating jokes from 2, 3 years ago.
Hmm.
And he would sit in the audience and afterwards I'd say thanks for coming, and he'd be like, that's a great show, and we'd part. And it's mainly because I don't really have very much to say to him and he doesn't have
Hmm.
very much to say to me. But so
Hmm.
enduring a full dinner seemed very
Hmm.
painful to me. Now I do live
It's just
shows,
quicker.
so it's quicker. Yeah. So I do live
Yeah.
shows, so it's easier for me to do that, to invite someone to a
Hmm.
place and substitute
Hmm.
me, the person, with a
Hmm.
stand up show, saying, just watch this
Hmm.
product. And
Hmm.
anyway, at dinner, you expect me to be amusing, etc. Instead of that, watch this show, which is a pre-packaged set of amusements.
Me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, in your case, you are a mass retail entertainer, right? Like, so
Hmm.
if you did not want to have dinner with someone, could you point them to a Netflix series or an Amazon series you're in and say, why don't you watch this instead of
Hmm.
dining with me? Would that work in your case? It works very well in my case because I do small venues in basements, and I can
No, more
always
than
say,
that,
yeah,
like I think more than that, you're actually there.
hmm,
I mean, it's a live performance, so they can see you and they can see that you're still making the same jokes, and it feels so nice to see that, he's the same guy I met 4 years ago because he's still telling the same jokes and stuff like that. So it gives them a sense of warmth almost, that my old friend, it's so lovely to see him, and he was right there, and then we just, we chatted for 15 minutes, and that was an evening. In my case now, if I point them towards some film, then they'll have, because see, I'm not completely in control of that film also, I'm just an actor in it. So then they'll have opinions on that film, then they'll say, oh, but that guy was much better than you, huh? And she was like fantastic, you are okay, whatever. So then it'll get into that this thing, or it'll be like, "Arey, what rubbish work you're doing," which is also nice because that's always the same thing they keep saying. So that's one, but then they haven't got that personal interaction. Your
hmm,
advantage
hmm,
is that it's almost, it's exactly what you're saying. It's a live performance where they're getting the best,
hmm.
the best jokes. Now it's all distilled down into this 25-minute package. Now they
Yeah.
can, it's for easy consumption. Whereas in my case now, I don't have that ready pill to give them.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. If you point them to a show where you're a sadist or a murderer or a child abductor,
yeah,
that's not substituting the dinner. Yeah.
it's not. And then I'm saying, because there's too many opinions. Was I a good child abductor? Was I a good sadist? I was, did I murder well? I mean, so then there's too much other stuff, and they don't get enough time with me. Whereas on the show, it's still you performing those things. So I mean, that's a much better way to go.
Yeah. Hi, welcome to the break.
Yeah.
We are now listener supported.
We're supported by listeners.
Support us.
Please. So, in order to support us, please go to patreon.com/ our last week and subscribe.
You get a free episode, you get cool merchandise,
Merch.
and you get us to participate in your life by coming to your ears.
Yeah.
Is the
Not
grammar-
house.
Not house.
No.
No sensible listener of our last week has a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in case you don't subscribe, you should go to Patreon/ our last week and subscribe. There are two options there, $5 and $2, and you get many different benefits.
Me doing dirty voices.
Yeah, I mean, those are avoidable, but you get that.
Please subscribe.
Please do. Patreon.com/ our last week.
Is this voice better?
No.
I thought
Creepy.
this is
It's creepy. It's creepy.
So, okay.
Don't scare people.
Sorry. Kunal, listen, this is
Yeah.
we've never done this on our last week, but as we were chatting,
Hmm.
I've just had a message come through, and this is from one of our Patreon subscribers. It's just come through right now from our producers on WhatsApp.
Okay.
And I've never read this conundrum. I'm just going to read it out to you because it just came through right now. It's from a
Okay.
gentleman called Knitflick, and he's one
Okay.
of our Patreon subscribers. So thank you, Knitflick.
Mhm.
And he writes, "Hi, I have a conundrum. How does one get one's elderly parents to donate or throw out things they don't use or haven't seen in decades? My siblings and I were hoping to declutter the home, but neither one will budge. Clothes, encyclopedias, set, old books, old bills, decades old, out of sight, in closets, dusty with disuse. Every attempt to get rid of anything leads to an argument and a delay of getting the home out of disarray. What should we do without us being accused of elder abuse?" I mean, my solution to this would be simple. I don't recommend this for everyone, and it's not very popular in Indian culture, which is to have your own home. So parents can do whatever the hell they want in their home, but you have a different home and a different life.
No. I get where he's coming from, because I mean, I have my own home and my parents, they have their own home. But the thing is that you, as in, you want them to live their best life, right? I mean, I know that there's a certain, now they've lived with all these things, and those things are just cluttering up their space. But what I feel is that every whenever you look at an item, na, and I don't know whether this will get through to elderly people, but say, you have to take the scenario in which they're no longer around, and then there's just this mountain of stuff. It's just a huge big pile of things, and each one of those things is a discussion. Each one of
Yeah.
those things is at least 5 to 10 minutes of time, because what you're going to do is you're going to look at it, then you're going to remember, then you're going to try and think back, what is this thing? Then you're going to say, oh, this is that. Oh, then there's this memory attached to it. Oh, is it of value? So basically, each item that you look at around you is going to be a discussion. Then if there are three people's opinions, like siblings, then is everyone's discussion on that one item. So then multiply that with every item you see in the house, and then imagine the amount of time it's going to be it's going to take to clear that out. And so that's why do you think when they talk of generational wealth, they should also talk of generational clutter?
Yeah,
Just
no.
multi-generational clutter is a thing, because people can't declutter, because each thing is a conversation, each thing is a story, each thing is is like sometimes a 20-minute argument. So that's why people don't get into it.
So two things. One thing that brokers have always told me in Bombay is that once a sale of a flat goes through, the owner, they're supposed to take their things and move out, right? And the owner sometimes changes his mind because at the last minute he returns to the house, starts looking at objects that he has bought. Some dinner plate from Amsterdam, some little curio
Yeah.
from Italy. and says, there are too many memories, I'm not selling this house. That's
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
The second is that imagine if at some point parents will pass away,
Hmm.
and imagine you are someone who doesn't throw anything out. So
Hmm.
you or whoever will be left with just a pile of, small crystal bowls from some visit to China, some little curio from Belgium. You'll just be sitting
Hmm.
with a shop of dolls, with some.
Hmm. Hmm.
So all you'll be left with was just
See,
you.
it's not
You look
only the
like an
dinner
axe
set. It
murderer.
Yeah, the thing is that these things are not only dinner sets, they're not only crystal, they are the legends of the dinner set. It's the legend of the dinner set that came from London. You know how we got this dinner set. So then there's a full story behind it. It was 1978.
Yeah.
Luggage was all being checked at the airport. I smuggled this in, and I told that officer, I'm saying, so there's a full story behind all these items. This crystal on my visit to Germany, I think it was 87. So I'm saying that now, how are you going to, each one of these things have a story, and some of it, of course, you want to keep because, that's what, ultimately, the stories are what make people and then live in people's memories and in people's heads. Now how else are you going to live on, right, through
Yeah.
if not through stories? But the stories are great, but the items attached to the stories need to go, so then
But
you just need to evaluate whether every item has a good enough story, and then it's fine keeping it. But you have to go through those stories, because that is of importance to them. And I think that is that to older people, it's not just things, it is the stories that's attached to it, because when they die, their only guarantee is the argument that you're going to be having about their things, and then, then
yeah.
like, remembering them because of those stories. Arey, this was the one they got from Germany. Yeah, you're just going to throw it out like that. So it's going to end in that. That's what they want. That's what they want. They want the fights. They want the fights about the things that made them who they were.
But without it, who are we also? Because then, if you sell
That's what I'm
everything,
saying.
if you sell
Yeah.
everything, you have no stories from the past, right? Then you are, if
Yeah.
you're like, I'm only looking forward, and you say sell everything or burn everything, auction everything, then you're like, then you are no one. You have no stories. You have no past, no
There's
present.
nothing.
You're an animal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but if you keep too much, you're like a serial killer. You just live with a pile of,
Then you're a hoarder.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like in my house, Konal, in my house, my father has a small little whiskey glass. It's a
Hmm.
completely, um, like not a fancy whiskey glass or anything. It's just a tiny little whiskey glass. Now,
Hmm.
in the 1983 World Cup final,
Hmm.
my dad and I had gone after the game. We didn't have tickets to the game. We went after the game. And at the
Hmm.
local pub near Lord's,
Hmm.
we ran into Joel Garner, who was having a drink.
Okay.
And accidentally, my dad ended up picking up Joel Garner's whiskey glass, while Joel Garner
Okay.
picked up my dad's whiskey glass. And he's kept that
Mm-hmm.
glass as a sort of celebration of the 1983 World Cup. Now
Hmm.
that glass means nothing to anybody, but it's in a
Hmm.
cabinet with other curios in my house.
Right.
Now, what is the value of that glass? Like, I will never, like, it's just a regular old whiskey glass. At some point it'll break. But it's not about the whiskey glass, it's about Joel Garner, who is probably dead.
Yeah.
So,
So that's what I'm saying. So there are so many things then attached to that thing or to that object, and then you just got to figure whether, you know, uh, whether this story is something that is going to go anywhere. Is it? Is it just a story between me and my dad? Is it a story that I need to tell other people, and then have it there on display? So I'm saying these are decisions and discussions, but I'm saying every item. I mean, some items are just garbage, like old newspapers and all. Now, come on, we can't keep that shit. But other things that do have these stories attached to them, I guess each one of them is a sort of discussion.
and I feel like our parents might be the last generation because all memories that and your kids may have, or we may be the last generation, because after this, all you'll have to get rid of when say people like us die is just our phones.
And chargers and cables.
Yeah, yeah, because imagine, like, if you want to get rid of all my memories, all you have to do is just throw my phone away, my Kindle, and my iPad, right? Like,
Yeah, and shut my iCloud or my Google Photos, and that's it. I'm wiped out.
yeah,
It's over.
yeah.
I don't have any copies of photographs of me, or I mean, like children born today are all exist digitally in photographs. They don't exist in physical photographs that much anymore.
I mean, it's earlier when you had to declutter a life, you had to sell real estate. There was a physical place with a thing written on the door with that person's name. Like, I guess we could end the episode with this, but I recently saw a movie about Richard the Third,
Hmm.
and the King Richard the Third. Who considered an evil king, considered to have murdered his nephews, all of that. He was found in a car park in Leicester. His remains were found in
Hmm.
2015. He died in 1498. And the
Hmm. Hmm.
reason they were able to find the film is about this one woman who wrote a book about her search for Richard III and convinced a
Hmm.
bunch of archaeologists to dig. It's a fascinating story. And
Right.
basically, now 1498, everything is physical. So physically, Richard III would be somewhere. And he was actually buried in a chapel called Greyfriars Chapel in the middle of Leicester. And the
Hmm.
only reason they found him is that when they burnt down Greyfriars Chapel, uh,
Hmm.
because it was a chapel, the only thing that they did after it got burned down was they decided they shouldn't build on anything on it because it would be bad for
Hmm.
the memory.
Hmm.
So basically, archaeologists were just looking for an open space in Leicester. Like,
Hmm.
what would be an open space?
Hmm.
And eventually they found that it could only be like a parking lot, and it was a parking lot behind McDonald's,
Right.
and that only existed because the they did not build anything in the 1700s once that Blackfriars Chapel burned down. So they
Right.
buried him in 1500. But all of this is physical, right? It's physical choices. It's ultimate decluttering, where the guy
Yeah.
decided that we should not build another thing based on where this guy is buried. So what would
Right.
remain of that 600 years later? An empty space, which is now a parking lot behind McDonald's. And they dug
Yeah.
under that parking lot, and they found remains of Blackfriars Chapel and the remains of Richard III.
Hmm.
Like, what would happen if Richard III died now? Well, first of all, he'd have to live 700 years. But now all someone would do is just sign off on Facebook and write "RIP." That's all.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't know if we've helped you, Netflix, but um, I think this is an incredibly difficult conundrum.
It is tough. It is tough.
So this has been our last week, Kunal.
This has been our last week.
And please keep sending us your conundrums like Netflix just did. We're on patreon.com/our last week. And hopefully, the next one, I'll be able to see you, Kunal, and we'll be able to do it in person.
Yes, looking for not looking, but yeah, whatever.
And you can clap next to my ear, like,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'll leave the room like a dog.
yeah, yeah.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
You were listening to Our Last Week, produced by Rajesh Tahil and Avdut Khanolkar, hosted by Anuvab Pal and Kunal Roy Kapoor, assistant producers Akansha Kadam and Rahul Vaswani.